Now I understand why everybody is so angry here on the stage, because the light is terrible. Good morning, everybody. After Itai's lecture, in fact, I have quite a simple job to do, and I will try to do it in the briefest, best way. We have really concentrated a team that would analyze the regional issue from the point of view of the threats, but also the opportunities. We had a team consisting of people with a different expertise in different disciplines. Anyway, in the Institute, we are working on building a new toolkit, because the old toolkit is not relevant anymore to the changes in our region, and we will try to express those trends in the work of the team. The team consists of people from the Institute and from outside it. We have this attempt to generalize. We see some phenomena and we look for a certain generalization, but we have to understand for a second that we are speaking about the Arab Spring, the Arab Winter, a regional turmoil or upheaval, but there are unique characteristics to each one of the countries that have their effect on the way the changes take place in those countries. I can speak about three models. The first model is the Egyptian one that comes from the bottom to the top, a group from the low middle classes, young people, frustrated ones who want to express themselves, to realize themselves, and they are generating this revolution that at the end of the day was snatched away from them by the political Islam. The second model is Syria, where the army stands side by side with a leader, and there is a civil war, a very bloody civil war. People are talking about 80,000 rather than 70,000 fatalities, and you can't see an end to this. And this is a war between the ethnic communities, because Syria is divided between different communities. And the third model is the model of monarchies. A few weeks ago we had a very interesting conference on that. The monarchies are surviving right now, but they also understand that they have to make the relevant changes and to adapt themselves to the changing environment. We can look at it from a different perspective that is even more generalizing, and this is between change and continuous trend. So what is continuous? Well, we know it, and we're going to speak about it. Iran on the way to nuclearization, and the freezing of the peace process between us and the Palestinians, kept peace between us and the Egyptians, the United States that is still here despite all the threats, and the continuous struggle between the Sunni and the Shiite. On the other hand, what we see here is the weakening of the state-based actors. Those actors that used to be responsible, that you could have some rules of the game vis-a-vis them, are being weakened, and there are non-state armed actors that are irresponsible, and they don't know the rules of the game, they don't know anything about international standards, and it's very hard to influence their intentions, and they are the most important challenge. Benedetta has been just when she said that we have to look at the street, because the street has this influence. It's a younger street, more open to the West, more open to technologies, that knows how to operate things, that knows how to put people on the street, and this is a significant actor, a significant player. It's not only the leaders at the end of the pyramid, but we are going to cope with the middle classes, the low middle classes, who have their effect on the processes, and Itai has spoken in detail about the new essences in this field. I would like to say something very briefly about Egypt and Syria, and then to speak about about what Israel can do vis-a-vis those challenges. As for Egypt, the story is not at its end yet. We are in the midst of the revolution in Egypt. There are three powerful forces: the Muslim Brothers regime, the army that went aside for a minute, but it is a very major player in terms of the future of Egypt, and the liberal opposition, mainly secular, that they have become probably a little bit tired, but there's still this revolutionary zeal amongst them. That is why Egypt is focused on its internal affairs. It doesn't look to regional matters. It's not anymore the leading country in the world. In Egypt, the color of money is the leitmotif, how you feed 90 million citizens. So Egypt is less interested in regional matters. It invests less in governance in Sinai, and those phenomena have been mentioned before. For us, it's positive signals, because the anti-Israeli, anti-Zionist regime in Egypt has decided to go the pragmatic way, because it knows that in order to survive it needs money from the World Bank and from the United States. Therefore, they understand that they have to be more pragmatic towards us. That is why we have to maintain the relations with Egypt. On the other hand, we have to remember that the change is in the offing, and there are going to be many surprises in the next few years. Syria has also been described quite a lot, but I would like to bring you another perspective that I arrived at as a result of many conversations that we hold with actors in this area. And this argument says the following: there is no one element that can have a decisive victory, because the opposition is split and Assad is still the army at his side. But the most important point is that most of the players have no real motivation, despite the fact that everybody speaks about the fatalities and the refugees, but no one has a real motivation to get involved in Syria. I can even tell you something more extreme. Some of them even encourage the war in Syria, because the negative forces, the radical forces, keep on fighting each other, and the radical Shiite axis, and on the other hand the Salafist jihadist factors, and they slaughter each other. And some of the actors in the region look at it and are quite satisfied, because it's not in their backyard, it's in another backyard, and the bad guys are killing each other. The second point is that the radical axis is becoming weakened and even disintegrated. A few years ago we were almost ready to give away the Golan Heights for it, but this is becoming reality. There is another point, and that is that there are very few levers with which we could influence what is going on in Syria, and whoever has to operate its powers, for example the United States is not going to get into another war in the Middle East, and the West is not going to do it without the United States. So nobody wants to put their hands into this swamp. And the last point is that there is no dominant figure that you can rely on to lead Syria in the future, and most of the trends are chaotic. Even when you intervene, you don't know what's going to result. What is the paradox here? The more you postpone this involvement, the more would it be difficult to restabilize Syria, because all the negative trends are becoming stronger. This is the threshold of using chemical weapons, that it might expand. All those elements of lack of stability and the issue of environmental spillover, this is already there in Lebanon, in Turkey, in Jordan as well, and that can be very detrimental to the neighborhood. When you go into calculating the balance for Israel, we can say that the balance is in favor of Israel right now, because what's happening is that the conventional military threat is weakening. It has already been described here today. We have a smaller probability of a regional war between the states, because every state is concerned about itself. Israel is not at the focus of those events. It's on the side and keeps on being there. There is a struggle between the radical and Sunni axis, and they actually erode each other. And at the end of the day, we are also able to keep our peace agreements with Jordan and Egypt. The Chief of Staff said yesterday something about it as a hint that we have to change the buildup of our forces and to adapt ourselves to these armed non-state actors and less so against conventional theaters of war and conventional wars. On the other hand, we have to look all the time at the negative trends that keep on developing, and Itai has spoken about it in great detail, and we have to be prepared and ready for those trends. In fact, we have been thinking what can be done, because we feel that we observe these phenomena, and maybe it would be better for us to take one step back. Amos said yesterday that maybe we should wait until this wave is over. Israel has taken up an intermediate policy between standing aside on the one hand and on the other hand dealing only with real tangible threats. We think that this direction should be changed, because we have to prepare ourselves better, and we have to take up a more entrepreneurial or a more proactive trend. Our toolkit, our toolbox is quite empty. So the first direction I would like to recommend is that we have an opportunity right now for a common interest between us. It's a temporary interest, not a long-range one, between us and the moderate Sunni actors here in the region. This is Jordan and Turkey, but also Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states, and Egypt as well should be included in this group. This is a group with which we can create a broad base of interests and be much more aligned with more insights and some ability for joint operations. The second point, as the Chief of Staff has said yesterday, we have to improve the defense and improve it along the borders, and our ability to operate vis-a-vis the frontier areas in the Golan Heights and in Sinai in order to minimize the detriment as a result of the activities of the radical jihad actors in this region. We think that there are other things that can be done. Here in the Institute, we have, through a lady that is called Orit Perlov, we have in the social networks some debates with more liberal, younger, more open elements. People say that this is only 10%. People are saying to us this is only 10% of the population on the other side. But when have we talked to 10%? Then in Egypt it's 10 million. When did the State of Israel have the opportunity to speak in an impartial way, in an unmediated way with 10 million Egypts, and not only to give unilateral messages to them, but to really have a discourse? We think that it is a significant opportunity. The same technology that is in the hands of every Arab youngster today is the opportunity to have debates with groups on the other side which are more influential and will be more influential, and we're doing it through social networks and through Track 2 and NGOs, positive NGOs initiatives and people to people, and we think that we have to make more a bigger effort. Another point is that when you look today at what bothers the states in the region, most normal, moderate countries, I mean, they are very bothered by the smuggling of arms. All these warehouses have been opened: Libya, Iraq, Sudan, Syria now, Iran, that pushes arms and munitions everywhere. Everybody is bothered by it, very much so. But the transition of Islamist jihad elements from one place to another, especially the ones that generate wars and riots. Everybody is bothered by the link, by the trickling towards using chemical weapons. Everybody is bothered with safeguarding the borders, how to share information in order to better cope with the threats and the challenges. These joint ideas give rise to opportunities. Israel can't lead it, but maybe the United States or NATO would lead an idea of a certain mechanism, and I'm not going to go into details about it, a regional mechanism which would create coordination and joint debate by these countries vis-a-vis these common challenges. In order for Israel to be privy to such a mechanism, and in order for Israel to be able to hold a dialogue and a debate and maybe a cooperation with the moderate coordinate elements in the area. It has to do two very important things. First of all, to express seriousness and real willingness to make progress in the political process vis-à-vis the Palestinians, and secondly, to convey a message concerning the Arab initiatives. These are things that are not too difficult, and we're going to speak about them during this day. And the last point, and I'm going back to the toolbox, we have to develop a new toolbox all the time. The Chief of Staff has mentioned yesterday something that is called a MABAR, MABAM. This is the campaign between the campaigns, and this is covert mainly, and it's there in order to improve our deterrence and not able the negative elements to be more powerful by treating arms smuggling and terrorist infrastructures, etc. And the third point is that we have to prepare ourselves if there is a campaign with more advantages vis-à-vis the other side. These things are being done, but it's not enough, because today we need a combination of a big gamut of means, not only military but also legal, political, and information and communication and cyber efforts as well, and also economic ones and civil ones and humanitarian ones. All this huge gamut is the gamut of efforts that should be operated vis-à-vis this region. It should be operated in a synchronized and combined way, integrated way. But I'm sorry to tell you that the State of Israel has not yet developed this body or this mechanism that can concentrate all these efforts and try to positively influence the situation. It is true that you can't be sure about the result, but it's going to improve significantly our ability to cope with the next challenges. Thank you very much.